Hey y'all, and welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for checking out my video. I hope you decide to subscribe, hit the like button if you are a mama. Okay, whatever. Anyways, today I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, and I've actually tried to do this video several times, and one time when he was 5 weeks old, and I might include some of the clips in this video. And also, not that long ago, but I was using my old camera and I just didn't like the way it looked. So hopefully this video will be a little better. I'm sorry, I'm probably gonna have to cut my car on because it is a little hot and we gotta have air. I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, and that is my labor and delivery story. If you're new here, I have a 20-month-old baby and this is our story. I was actually 38.5 weeks pregnant when I went into labor, and I knew that I was going in labor because, well, the first signs that I was going into labor was that I felt him really low. I felt a lot of pressure really low. On Thursday morning I woke up and I felt really odd. I felt very off. It felt like he had dropped, and it felt like my bones were kind of like separated and loose. And throughout the day I had cramping. After that I was having mild contractions throughout the night, enough to wake me up, but it wasn't like they were super powerful or anything like that, and it almost felt like period cramps. I kept waking up through the night having very mild cramping contractions. And then that morning when I got up, I noticed that I had my bloody show, which I will put down here what that means. But anyways, whenever you have that, it basically means you're going to be giving birth within 24 hours. So I knew that I was in for it because of that. I'm sorry, my hair looks really bad. I haven't did anything with it today. After that, I was actually supposed to go into work, and I worked at my mom's dog grooming shop, but she didn't have that many dogs that day, and I just felt like it was more important for me to get ready for my baby versus go to work. And my mom understood, and she was like, that's fine. So I went and I panicked and I packed my hospital bag and I got his clothes ready and all that jazz. And then I was having contractions throughout the day, but they were very mild and they were kind of spaced out. My mom told me that I needed to go to the hospital, and I'm like, I don't really want to. Can I just wait a little while and see what happens? So I decided to use my app on my phone to try to time my contractions to see if they were a concern or not. It timed my contractions, and whenever one would start, I would hit start, and whenever it would stop, I would hit stop, and it timed them. And after several contractions, it told me to go to the hospital immediately, and also said to call an ambulance if I couldn't get to the hospital. So it pretty much was pretty clear that I needed to go to the hospital. I went home that day and I took a nap, and the contractions kind of stopped. My mom came over and she's like, okay, are you ready to go to the hospital? I'm like, well, my contractions have stopped. And she's like, well, okay, but you really need to go to the hospital, or you're gonna, you don't want to wait and go to the hospital when you're like in full-blown labor, or it's gonna be a lot harder. So I was like, okay, well, can we get something to eat first and then kind of see how I feel at that point? She's like, yes. So I got my hospital bag and everything, and I got in the car, and I'll never forget that day because that was like the last day that I was at that house, because me and my husband got another house while I was pregnant, and we weren't moved in yet, but I moved in the day I came home from the hospital. Crazy. It was rough. But she went into Walgreens to get something, and I stayed out in the car because I'm like, I ain't going nowhere, I'm tired. That's when I started having contractions that were actually painful. And I told my mom when she got in the car, I'm like, okay, let's go to the hospital because I'm actually in labor. I believe I'm in labor. It's hurting. And I got Arby's. We got some Arby's, and then I couldn't even finish my sandwich, but so we did that, and we went to the hospital. I checked in. They rode me up in a wheelchair up to the labor and delivery floor, and I got checked to see how dilated I was, and I was only half a centimeter, but they put one of those contraction monitors on my belly, and I was having contractions. My doctor was called, and my doctor said to just, let me stay because I was clearly in labor. They also had me walk around the labor and delivery floor for an hour to see if I would progress anymore. And when I first started, I was having contractions, but they weren't really that painful. They were very manageable. But by the end of that hour, I was in pain. Like, they were actually pretty hard. So I was like, oh, okay. And so everybody could tell I was progressing. And so I obviously stayed. And then my husband came. Well, he wasn't my husband at the time. He was my fiance. But he came to the hospital. My dad came to the hospital. My mom was there with me, obviously. And she's always been there with me through everything. And, of course, my husband as well. And I didn't plan for my dad to be there, but he came and he was there for everything as well. But he didn't. I don't know what he saw. Okay, anyways. As I was progressing, it got pretty painful, I'm not gonna lie. I did not get an epidural, and that was very planned for me. I did not want to get one. I was very, very, very adamant, serious about not getting an epidural for many reasons. The big reason was because I was actually afraid to get one, and I was more afraid to get one than I was to give birth. We'll talk more about that later. I just kept, progressing. The contractions got worse and worse and worse. And okay, so to describe the way they feel is basically, they start out here and then they go up, they peak, and then they slowly go down. And then you'll have a period where you're not having one, and then they'll go up, and that's how contractions are. And as you get further and further into your labor, closer to having your baby, they get closer and closer apart they get closer together. That's what I'm trying to say. The contractions will be not that spaced at all, so you'll have one and then you'll have another one right back to back, and then and that's when it gets really, really painful. Okay, so like I said, I did not get an epidural, and that was very planned, but I was in a lot of pain at this point. And so the doctor came in and they said that one thing I needed to do. Okay, so my family all asked the nurses, what can she do to not be in so much pain? What should she do? And they said for me to get in the shower. And so I got in the shower, and I'll never forget that. My husband, fiance at the time, was in there with me, and I was like, I'm about to throw up. So he gave me the trash can, and I threw up all in it in the shower. And I don't want to be gross, but there was stuff pouring out of me. Blood, and just a lot of stuff was just coming out of me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, Shane. I am so sorry. This is really bad. Oh, okay. It was rough. And then I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm out of here. But I will say, though, getting a shower was a really good idea because it definitely eased the contractions, made them much more bearable. So I definitely recommend getting a bath or shower during labor. Was wonderful. Oh, it was so amazing. But I did get to a point where I was like, I'm done. I want out of here, because I just wanted to be dried off and just to lay in the bed and relax more. But I had to pee, and I'm like, okay, Shane, I gotta go. So I went and I peed, and oh my gosh, that was painful. That was really painful. I actually screamed when I used the bathroom because it hurt so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, this hurts. And then I was, completely naked at this point, and I'm ready to get out of the bathroom and go back into my room. And I was just ready to go back in my room, and they all had to throw the robe or the gown on me, because I didn't care at this point. I didn't care who seen me nude. I just wanted to lay down in my bed and get comfortable. I was in a lot of pain at this point. The nurse came in and checked me to see how far along I was, and I was at 5 centimeters at this point, and I was in a lot of pain at this point. The contractions kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and after this point it does get a little foggy for me, because I wanted to get some type of pain medicine, so they gave me Stadol, which is an IV pain medicine, and to get the medicine they have to put IV in your arm, and oh my gosh, I screamed again. I'm like, it feels like a bloop, bloop, stick in my arm. I was like cussing like a sailor. I was cussing really bad, and my favorite word was the F word. That's all I said, literally. I didn't even say nothing else. Just like every combination of that word you can say is what I was saying. And my dad was like, Heather, I didn't know you spoke like that. I didn't know you would say that. And I'm like, you know, it was rough. But after they gave me that Stadol medicine, basically what it is it makes you feel really, I don't know, like drunk, I guess. You feel the pain still, but you don't care, which was great because it actually allowed me to go to sleep in between contractions, and it allowed me to progress all the way up to the big numbers. I would go in and out of sleep, and I was feeling the contractions, but I was able to relax, and I didn't care. And but once it wore off, okay, so once it wore off, I remember I woke up out of my sleep, and I just remember being in the worst pain possible. It was really bad. I'm not gonna lie, it was awful. It was a 20 out of a 10. It was bad. The best way to describe the labor that I was feeling is that it felt like the grabs of hell. It felt like I was dying, and I sat there and I breathed, and I remembered that to breathe because they told me to breathe through the contractions, and I also counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in my head, and I just held tight to the bed and I breathed through them like that, and I was able to get through them. And then finally at one point I started saying, help me, help me, I feel awful, please help me, somebody. And they rushed over and they rechecked me to see how dilated I was, and I was at a 9 at that point. And so they said, okay, you're ready to start pushing, the baby is ready to be evicted, let's get the show on the road. And then everybody started pouring in, the nurses started coming in, the doctor came in, and everybody was there. They brought in the little thing where you put the baby in. I don't know what that's called, the little basket thing where the newborn stays in. And it was crazy. It was so surreal, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to get this baby out. Like, I've never had a baby before. How am I gonna have this baby out? I'm still like, it's still touching to me because it's amazing. But so anyways, so we all were there, and they took the I forget how they did the bed. They took the bed apart and like had stirrups on the bed or something, and they said, okay, are you ready to push? And I said, okay. They said just to, you know, bear down and push as hard as you can. And I pushed one time, and they're like, you're gonna have to push harder than that. And so I'm the type of person, I knew that once the baby's out, no more pain. So I pushed like a son of a gun, and I was like, ah, like I screamed because I was pushing, honey. And the pain was nowhere near as bad during the pushing. It actually felt way better, and it was a lot. It just helped calm the pain of the contractions. And then of course, once he was born, he came out like within 3 pushes or something. Honestly, he came out pretty fast. It wasn't but like a couple minutes and he was out. And I remember, well, the first thing I said when he was born is, what just happened? And they said, you just had a baby. And then I said, I could do that again. That wasn't so bad. And then they put him on me, and I was just looking at him, and it was just the most amazing thing ever. Honestly, everything was right in the world at that point. And I told him I loved him. Because I do. I love him so much. I told him I loved him, and I kissed him, and then he, you know, was nursing or trying to nurse and stuff, and I noticed the doctor kept working on me, and he just kept working on me, trying to sew me up. And I had a natural vaginal birth, and he just kept working down there, and I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And I felt pulling and stuff, and he was trying to stitch me up, and he told me, I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to do surgery on you. I was like, what? I feel normal, I feel fine, my baby's here. What do you mean you're gonna have to do surgery? And they said that I tore so bad, I tore to my cervix, and I just needed to have surgery. And remember, I didn't have an epidural, okay? But to have surgery, you have to have a spinal block. And I'm like, what? I went through all of this pain to have my baby, and now it's for nothing because now I'm gonna have to get a spinal block. It was the most defeating feeling in the world. And at this point, I just wanted to hurry up and get this over with. So I just signed the papers that said, it's okay to give me surgery, give me spinal block, whatever. I just signed it as fast as I could to just get it over with. And then they rushed me to the room. I remember they put me on the table, and then they were giving me the spinal block, and they told me, bend down and don't move and relax and everything. And it was rough. And then once they gave it to me, of course, my body became numb. And then I remember him saying that, do you feel anything? And I said, that feels really weird. And then I kind of went out, and then I would come in and out, and I just remember seeing him, down there, and they had my legs like tied up, and I was kind of tied down, so I guess so I wouldn't move or anything. And it was very traumatizing, I'm not gonna lie. It traumatized me for months, honestly. I was traumatized for a very long time, and it was rough. So yeah, but it was really bad. But afterwards I was fine, and they brought me back to the room, and I remember the doctor saying that I was going to be in a lot of pain, and that really was upsetting. But I asked, all I cared about was my baby, and I asked them, how much did he weigh? And they said 6 pounds and 14 ounces. I thought that he would be in the 6 pounds, 6.5 range. So it was just great to just know that he was okay, and that he was, great, good weight, and I just wanted to be with him. And I feel like, honestly, I do feel like I missed out on those first minutes and hours of bonding with your child, because I kind of was rushed off to surgery, and it just, I don't know, it was rough. Okay, so that that was my labor and delivery story. I healed up. I had to stay in the hospital, I think, for like 3 days. It was fine. I've healed up. Still a little traumatized by what happened, but I've healed up completely. And yeah, so my advice, though, if you're a new mom, if you never gave birth before, don't push too hard too soon. I feel like that was one of my biggest problems and why I tore so bad. And I will say that I had, I think, 4th degree tears. It was 3rd or 4th degree tears. I tore badly, like inside, outside, everywhere. I tore really badly. So my advice is, if you're a new mama, please don't push too hard too soon. I feel like I probably wasn't even dilated to a 10, because when they checked me, I was at a 9, and I don't think I was at a 10. And they told me to push really hard too, and so I pushed with everything I had. I didn't just let my baby kind of ease out. He was forced out. And so I feel like, don't do that, please. No, if I ever have another baby, which I definitely want another one, I am not against getting an epidural, because I feel like it might help me relax more, so that he or she can come out of me a little easier and not tear me. And I don't know, that's definitely going to be on my top priority list of my birth plan for my next baby, is not tearing, because it was bad. And for the longest time, for I would say like 3 months, I couldn't even walk for like more than 10 minutes without being sore. But I have completely and totally healed up, and I went back to the doctor and they checked me out and I'm healed. But it was not a good feeling and it was very defeating. Okay, so this has been my labor and delivery story. If you made it this far, thank you so much. I love you. I'm very curious if anyone else has experienced what I've experienced, and if they have any tips or advice for new moms as well, please leave them in the comments below. It was an amazing experience. It was hard, but it was an amazing experience. It's worth it, trust me. It's so worth it to have your baby. Like, yeah, it sucks. It's a 1 day of suckiness, and then you have your baby for your lifetime. So obviously it's worth it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this was interesting and may have helped a new mom who's never given birth before. It's a lot of fun. No, I'm just kidding. It's not a lot of fun, but it's only 1 day of your life, and then you have your child for the rest of your life.